Yahuwah, we pray, open you our eyes, that we may behold wondrous things out of your Torah. Your word is a lamp unto our feet, and a light unto our path. For the commandment is a lamp, and the Torah is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life.
Now we need to understand that converts to the faith were called proselytes. A person who converted to the faith of the Yahudim or the Jews was not called a Jew. A foreigner that converted to the Torah and following the life of the commands, statutes, and law of Yahuwah, they did not convert to becoming a Jew. They did not convert to becoming an Israelite. A foreigner was still a foreigner. They were just a foreign convert or a proselyte. Matthew chapter 23, verse 15. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you compass sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he is made, ye make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves. So this is Yahusha rebuking the teachers of the law, saying that they go vast distances going to other countries to make converts of foreigners. But what they are actually teaching foreigners is not the Torah. They're teaching these people the traditions of men. Acts chapter 2, verse 10. Phrygia and Pamphylia, in Egypt, and in parts of Libya about Cyrene, and strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes. So these proselytes that were at the Feast of Pentecost or Shavuot, some of them were proselytes or foreign believers, foreign converts. Acts chapter 6, verse 5. And the saying pleased the whole multitude, and they chose Stephen, a man full of faith and of the set-apart spirit, and Philip, and Prochorus, and Nicanor, and Timon, and Parmenas, and Nicholas, a proselyte of Antioch. So this man Nicholas was a foreigner. He was a foreign convert. He was a proselyte. Acts chapter 13, verse 43. Now when the congregation was broken up, many of the Jews and religious proselytes followed Paul and Barnabas, who, speaking to them, persuaded them to continue in the grace of Elohim. So again, we have religious proselytes who are believing foreigners, foreign converts. They're not Israelites, they are not Jews or Yahudim. These are foreigners that have converted to the way of the Torah. That word that's translated as proselyte is the Strong's reference number G4339. Proselytos, a newcomer, a stranger, alien, a proselyte, one who has come over from a Gentile religion to Judaism. As we saw before, the term Greek, as it was used in the times of the first century, could refer to a person who followed the Greek culture or spoke the Greek language. Well, Shaul or Paul spoke both Hebrew and Greek. Acts chapter 21, verse 40. And when he had given him license, Paul stood on the stairs and beckoned with the hand unto the people. And when there was made a great silence, he spake unto them in the Hebrew tongue, saying, so, of course, Paul, being a Pharisee and teacher of the law, spoke Hebrew. Acts chapter 21, verse 37. And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, Captain, may I speak unto you? Who said, Can you speak Greek? And Paul was in the custody of Roman soldiers, and he spoke to the captain in Greek. So Paul was able to speak both Hebrew and Greek. Okay, so having the issue of the dichotomy that Paul talks about in his letters between the Jew and the Greek, we're going to look at some passages where Paul refers to himself. First, we're going to look at Acts chapter 21, verse 39. But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city, and I beseech you, suffer me to speak unto the people. So Paul witnesses of himself to be a Jew. Philippians chapter 3, verse 5. Circumcised the 8th day, of the stock of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of the Hebrews, as touching the law, a Pharisee. So again, Paul testifies of himself of being an Israelite of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew. Now we're going to look at what Paul says of himself in Acts chapter 22. We're going to start reading in verse 25. And as they bound him with thongs, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, Is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and uncondemned? When the centurion heard that, he went and told the chief captain, saying, Take heed what you do, for this man is a Roman. Then the chief captain came and said unto him, Tell me, are you a Roman? He said, Yes. And the chief captain answered, With a great sum obtained I this freedom. And Paul said, But I was freeborn. Then straightway they departed from him which should have examined him. And the chief captain also was afraid, after he knew that he was a Roman, and because he had bound him. Okay, so in the previous passages, Paul testifies of himself of being a Yehudi, or a Jew, of the tribe of Benjamin, an Israelite. But here we see that Paul testifies of himself as being a Roman. So was Paul a Roman by ethnicity? Was he one of the children of Hittim? Was he Italian by ethnicity? This is not what Paul was saying. Paul was a Roman and Yehudi. He was a Roman and Jew. He was a Roman Israelite. Okay? So to understand this, it was the policy in the Roman Empire that any person born in the provinces under the authority of the Roman Empire received automatic Roman citizenship. And just like today with the United States, which follows the same Roman system. Any person born in the territories or states of the United States automatically receives United States citizenship. That's why this captain answered, "With a great sum obtain I this freedom." So in other words, this captain had to pay a great amount of money to receive his Roman citizenship. Just like people who are born in other countries, when they want to come to the United States and become a citizen, many of them have to pay a lot of money, pay visas, and go through all kinds of programs in order to receive their green card and United States citizenship. But Paul said that he was freeborn. In other words, he was born in a Roman province, so he received automatic Roman citizenship. So when we consider that Paul was a Roman and a Jew, could it be that the Greeks that Paul was writing about in his letters were actually Greek Israelites? So to understand the history of Israel, after the time of King Solomon, the kingdom of Israel was divided into two kingdoms. There was the northern kingdom of the house of Israel and the southern kingdom of the house of Judah. The northern kingdom of the house of Israel received a bill of divorce from Yahuwah and became not a people. They were exiled into the Assyrian Empire beyond the river Euphrates. So in the first century Judea, all you had was the southern kingdom of the house of Judah, because the house of Israel, the northern kingdom, remained in exile all that time. So we're going to look at Alexander the Greek and see how the relationship between Alexander and the Jews of the time, that's from 336 to 323 BC. And we're going to see the relationship between Alexander and the Yahudim in Judea. And we're going to read from the Histories of Flavius Josephus, Antiquity of the Jews, Book 11, Chapter 8. And when he understood that he was not far from the city, he went out in procession with the priests and the multitude of citizens. The procession was venerable, and the manner of it different from that of other nations. It reached to a place called Sapha, which name translated into Greek signifies a prospect. For you have thence a prospect both of Jerusalem and of the temple. And when the Phoenicians and the Chaldeans that followed him thought they should have liberty to plunder the city and torment the high priest to death, which the king's displeasure fairly promised them, the very reverse of it happened. For Alexander, when he saw the multitude at a distance in white garments, while the priests stood clothed with fine linen, and the high priest in purple and scarlet clothing, with his mitre on his head, having the golden plate whereon the name of Elohim was engraved, he approached by himself and adored that name, and first saluted the high priest. The Jews also did all together, with one voice, salute Alexander, and encompass him about. Whereupon the kings of Syria and the rest were surprised at what Alexander had done, and supposed him disordered in his mind. So you can go back and read the Josephus' history to get the whole context of what's going on here. But basically, Alexander came with his armies, and he was headed toward Judea. And the high priest fasted and prayed to Yahuwah, and Yahuwah told him that all the Yahudim should wear white clothing and greet Alexander when he approaches. So that's what they did. And when Alexander came to the city of Jerusalem, he actually honored the high priest and worshipped Yahuwah. However, Parmenio alone went up to him and asked him how it came to pass that, when all others adored him, he should adore the high priest of the Jews. To whom he replied, I did not adore him, but that Elohim who has honored him with his high priesthood. For I saw this very person in a dream, in this very habit, when I was at Dios in Macedonia, who, when I was considering with myself how I might obtain the dominion of Asia, exhorted me to make no delay, but boldly to pass over the sea thither, for that he would conduct my army and would give me the dominion over the Persians. Whence it is that, having seen no other in that habit, and now seeing this person in it, and remembering that vision and exhortation which I had in my dream, I believe that I bring this army under the divine conduct, and shall therewith conquer Darius, and destroy the power of the Persians, and that all things which succeed according to what is in my own mind. And when he had said this to Parmenio, and had given the high priest his right hand, the priest ran along by him, and he came into the city. So what had happened was, Alexander had a dream, and in that dream he saw the high priest. And the high priest told him that he would go and conquer the Persians. So when Alexander came to Jerusalem and actually saw the high priest in person, he recognized the high priest from his dream. And he understood that Yahuwah had spoken to him in his dream. And when he went up into the temple, he offered sacrifices to Elohim, according to the high priest's direction, and magnificently treated both the high priest and the priests. And when the book of Daniel was shown him, wherein Daniel declared that one of the Greeks should destroy the empire of the Persians, he supposed that himself was the person intended. And as he was then glad, he dismissed the multitude for the present. But the next day he called them to him, and bid them ask what favors they pleased of him. Whereupon the high priest desired that they might enjoy the laws of their forefathers, and might pay no tribute on the 7th year. He granted all they desired, and when they entreated him that he would permit the Jews in Babylon and Media to enjoy their own laws also, he willingly promised to do hereafter what they desired. And when he said to the multitude that if any of them would enlist themselves in his army on this condition, that they should continue under the laws of their forefathers and live according to them, he was willing to take them with him, many were ready to accompany him in his wars. Okay, so Alexander went and he gave gifts to the temple. He treated the high priest well, and it was shown him the prophecies of Daniel that the Greeks would overtake the empire of the Persians. And he supposed that he was the person, and of course he was. The person that Daniel was speaking about in his prophecies. And Alexander gave the Yahudim, or the Jews, the right to follow their own laws, to follow the Torah. He gave them freedom to follow the Torah, and even Jews that were in Babylon and Media. So there is still a remnant of Jews from the exile in Babylon that were still in Babylon. And there are also Yahudim in Media. And he gave, this is Alexander, he gave the Yahudim freedom to follow their own culture, to follow their own laws and commands of Yahuwah. And in fact, he also invited the Jews to enlist in his army. And it says many were ready to accompany him in his wars. So many Yahudim, many Jews, actually enlisted into the Greek army.
Shema Yisrael. You are the light of the world. Let the love of Yahuwah and light of Torah shine in your hearts. May the face of Yahuwah shine on you. Shalom.